Hey, what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new video. So today I'm going to be talking about some series that I started but I won't be continuing with them. I like DNFing series when I'm not feeling super compelled to continue with them, and if I feel like it's not worth my time, it's much better to just let it be instead of just dragging myself through the series. Most of the series on this list are series that I've only read to the first book from, and I just didn't think it was that special for me to continue. But a couple of them might be some that I'm DNFing in the middle of the series because I just had enough. But yeah, without further ado, let's look at the list. So the first series is War Girls by Mary Lou. So this is a young adult sci-fi series that came out quite a few years ago by this point, and I finally got to the first book late in last year. And yeah, I was quite intrigued about it because like it has to do with online gaming and coding, and I don't really game but I do code. And so this is about a young girl who is a hacker and she's broke, and she gets invited to this huge online game to help catch some other hackers. And I was just very underwhelmed with it. There was barely any coding even mentioned, and the writing felt quite below the standard quality, and yeah, the plot wasn't that exciting. It did end up on a cliffhanger and I would be quite curious to see how the plot continues, but I mean, I can just read a summary and yeah, I just don't feel compelled to read the sequel. I think the series only has 2 books, so I would only have 1 book to read, but I just don't want to. Next we have Remembrance of Earth's Past by Cixin Liu, and the first book is The Three-Body Problem. So this is such a well-known book that is considered kind of a classic sci-fi by this point, and I randomly got it at a bookstore, and then later the same day I discovered that the author is kind of problematic, but I still decided to give it a shot because it's such a classic and I just, you know, had in mind what I learned. So this is a sci-fi that has the history of China kind of as a backdrop, and there are 2 timelines. In one we are following this woman who is politically persecuted and she's sent to work at this isolated research station. She's an astrophysicist and she doesn't really know what's happening most of the time, but she makes some discoveries. And then the present timeline is this another scientist, and he gets recruited to infiltrate this secret society because something very weird is going on regarding like physical laws and the universe and stuff. And then this scientist spends part of the book in this online game where he plays along and he tries to solve the problem, the 3-body problem, which in the game means that there are basically like 3 suns and they periodically destroy the world. And so the people in the game kind of trying to prevent that. And yeah, I have to say this book had some really like interesting, to the point of almost being ridiculous, concepts. Like it was really out there. Like I don't read that much like hard sci-fi, but like it's probably like one of the most iconic in the genre. I mean, like people think so, so like I can see why, but at the same time I wasn't overly that impressed with it. Like especially the character work was quite lacking, and like the online game sequences for me got quite tedious, and yeah, with some of the concepts I just kind of couldn't with it because like it was so ridiculous. It was a bit of a work to go through it, but I mean, I did rate it highly. I gave it 4 stars. I think like it's a pretty good book, but at the same time I don't feel compelled to continue with more volumes, and I feel like for me it was kind of satisfactory as a standalone. Like I'm glad I read it because it's so well known, but yeah, I won't be continuing with the series. Next we have Wayward Children by Shannon McGuire. So this one was quite tough for me to decide on because I really like some of the volumes. I read volumes 1 and 2 twice, and I gave a lot of the volumes 4 stars, but then I gave some of them 3 stars, and basically I think I read 7 volumes so far, and there are like multiple more coming. So this is a young adult portal fantasy series where we follow these children / teenagers who one day have the opportunity to go through a door and be at a world that is specifically catered to them. Like it's perfect, they can be who they are mostly, and then they come to today's world and they cannot cope, and they are sent to this school where they kind of learn how to cope. And yeah, I liked the school setting and I liked some of the worlds, but I was still waiting for some volume to absolutely blow me away, you know, a one that I could give 5 stars, and it wasn't coming. So yeah, and then some of the newer ones that are coming, I think they're like about like evil mermaids or like even like dinosaurs, and I'm like, even though this sounds like interesting in theory, it's probably not for me. So yeah, so I thought to myself that I might just as well DNF it and try something else. Next we have a soft DNF, or more like a series that I haven't DNF'd yet, but I probably will after the next volume I read. So this is the Finley Donovan series by Ellie Cosimano. So the first book, Finley Donovan is killing it. I absolutely loved. 5 stars, it made it into my favorite books. So it's kind of a humorous thriller where this writer who is really struggling to pay the bills and take care of the kids because like she got divorced with her husband, and one day she is mistaken for a murder for hire because she's talking like out loud about like the synopsis for her next book. And then yeah, she's like drawn into this scheme and it's so fun. She has a babysitter called Vero and they just get into a lot of shenanigans together, and yeah, so enjoyable. But then I read the second book and it was significantly worse. I still gave it 4 stars. I think it was maybe between 3 and 4, but I just thought it lost a lot of the spark and ease and humor from the first book, and basically it was like a very similar plot rehashed. And yeah, a lot of the people say that the series goes further downhill. So there is the third book and like it ended up on some people's like worst books of the year, which is like if you're reading book 3 you probably liked the previous volumes. So yeah, not the best reviews. I do have the third one on Kindle, I think, so yeah, I will probably read it, but I don't have high hopes for it. And there are even more books coming out, and yeah, I just think that she's kind of squeezing out the concept a bit without really executing on it that well as she did in the first book. So yeah, with this one we will see, but I think it will get DNF'd. Next we have the Billy and Me series by Giovanna Fletcher. So this is Giovanna Fletcher's early work, and I believe that since then maybe she has developed, but unfortunately the quality of this was such that it has really deterred me from maybe ever trying something else by her. So this is an adult romance where we follow an ordinary woman who falls in love with a really well-known actor, and it's about how she is dealing with suddenly being in the public eye and about their relationship. And I had high hopes for this book because Giovanna Fletcher is a popular romance writer and a lot of people have recommended this book, but unfortunately I was so underwhelmed and also a bit annoyed. So the writing wasn't that good. Like there were, like, for example, many exclamation marks used like outside of direct speech, which was just so weird and it took me out of the story. The characters weren't that fleshed out, and I especially thought that like Billy was more of a caricature than a character, and I just really didn't like the romance. So yeah, that was a fail for me, and it's a series and I think even people who liked the first book didn't like the second book, so yeah, I'm definitely not continuing with the series. Next we have A Lot's Away by Darcy Little Budgers. So I only recently learned that there is a new book coming out in the series that will be like a prequel about the grandmother of the main character from the first book. And so this book is about this teenage girl who lives in a slightly stranger America, and she can raise like dead animals. And so she has like a dog who died, but now it's a ghost. And so we have like a lot of paranormal stuff going on, but then at the same time it kind of becomes like a murder mystery. We have the Native American and also asexual rap in this book, but when it came to the plot and the kind of blend of genre, it didn't really end up working for me. So yeah, I'm not really interested in picking up the prequel. Next we have The Appeal by Janice Hallett. So The Appeal, it's a tricky one. So this is such a beloved thriller on BookTube that it's a bit controversial to not like it, but yeah, it's basically a murder mystery that is completely wrote down in like emails, and also like some like documents. And mixed format often works for me, but with this one it kind of ended up being a bit ridiculous that like the characters would be only like emailing each other, even though like they are like here to pick up someone, they would still like email. But most of all, it just didn't work for me as a murder mystery, because by the end I could not care less about who did it. And yeah, the characters were unlikable on purpose, but I just couldn't deal with it. And at the same time, I don't think that the mental health representation, if we can call it that, was handled especially well. So yeah, I wasn't a fan. I still gave it 3 stars because like it was quite readable, but yeah, I had all of these complaints about it. And there is like a sequel, prequel, I don't know, and it's the Christmas appeal, and I have to say like the cover is appealing to me because it's just like nice and Christmassy, and maybe it would be better in a Christmas design, but yeah, I'm probably not going to pick it up. Next we have the Folk of the Air series, the first book being The Cruel Prince. So I read this one a couple of years back and I was quite determined that I was going to continue, but then I changed my mind. So this is a young adult urban fantasy series about a girl who, well, I don't remember. She kind of spends a lot of time in the Fae world, and yeah, clearly the plot wasn't that impactful, but my main struggle with it was that it's basically a bully romance, and yeah, I was quite invested in that like while I was reading it. Basically, I realized that I mainly just like the kiss scene or just them getting together, but then I realized that I'm probably not here for a bully romance. Like the bullying in this one and the 180 they had to take, like I didn't even read like any truly like bully romance, like dark romance. But yeah, I think this is my sign that maybe it's really not for me, because I was like, what? And yeah, now a few years have passed and I just don't care anymore. I would have to reread the first one, which I absolutely don't want to do, so yeah, this one is done for me. Next we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold series by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And here comes another one of my unpopular opinions, I think. So this is a series about this cafe in Japan where you can go back in time and kind of have like one last conversation with someone, and yeah, you can only stay in the cafe. You have to finish it before the coffee gets cold. And so I like the world building, I like the concept, it was quite fun. And in each book we have like several kind of separate stories about these people who go back in time, and then it's all framed by like the staff that works there that appears there the whole time. And yeah, I just wasn't fully on board with how the stories were told. I did cry while reading one of the stories, but I just felt that the book was quite emotionally manipulative, and what really pissed me off was the last story in the first book, which had like a pretty clear pro-life undertone. And I'm not here for anyone being pro-life and anti-abortion, but especially not a man. So yeah, I ended up kind of pissed, and I didn't love the book enough to continue with the series. It's probably like more of the same, and I think I would still find it like manipulative. So yeah, for me the first book was enough, even though I liked the concept. And then the last one, we have I Heart New York series by Lindsay Kelk. So this is an adult contemporary romance about a woman who finds her boyfriend cheating while they are like at a friend's wedding, and she decides to like pick up her life and move from London to New York, and it's about her adventures there and, you know, maybe meeting someone new. And it was quite fun, but this series is pretty old. Like I think the first book came out in 2009, so it is a product of its time, and it didn't age particularly well. There was some like diet culture talk, and just yeah, like it didn't age that well, and I wasn't that invested in the characters to really continue. So yeah, I had fun with the first one, but that's it for me. So yeah, these are some series that I won't be continuing with. Do you agree with me or do you disagree? Or what's a series that you recently DNF'd? Let me know in the comments, and like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!